Alright, today we're going to be installing the B8 short shift clamp. This is basically half of what you normally get in a short throw shift kit, and it gets you most of the gains for only a fraction of the price. So normally when you get a short throw shift kit from one of the other companies, you're going to get basically an extended length lever on the bottom side, and then they're going to shorten the top side. This is not always an advantage because it actually takes away the top side length, so it's a little bit farther for you to get from the steering wheel over to the shifter. So I personally prefer to be up higher, and actually if I had it my way it would be up here. So maybe we'll make a shifter like that someday. But yeah, install is pretty straightforward. We're basically going to be extending the length of the bottom of the shifter, and so let's get right into it. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get this panel off, and there's some tricks to that. So you can actually dig your hand in here under the boot. First of all, make sure your parking brake is on because you're going to be in neutral here. So you can actually dig under here and you can pull this up, and then in order to get it out, it's being held in by this piece here, which there's a couple of holes on the bottom side of it you can kind of feel, and if you put your finger up in those holes, you can kind of just pull it out forward. So you can see the hole right here, and that really helps you get a grip on it. And just once this is out here, you'll be able to pull this piece back. There's 4 tabs that hold the boot here in from the bottom. You can go in from the bottom with a screwdriver and try to find them. I found, and do this at your own risk, but I found if you kind of push in right here in this front corner, kind of inwards, you can actually get one of those tabs to let up, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs, and that's going to allow this boot to come up. You might as well just take it off right away. So from the factory you'll have a clamp on here. I've actually already removed it, but it's just kind of a one-time use clamp. You'll go in here and either cut this clamp off, or you'll get a pliers and you can kind of pull this hole off of the barb that'll allow it to come off. You might have to kind of twist it and use some force. Once you get that off, that releases the friction surface, and you can actually just pull the knob right up. So we're going to just keep that out of the way. And then on the bottom side here, there are 3 clips that you need to undo. So I usually, once I kind of get this forward and now these little barbs are not being held in by this, I actually just put this piece back in because it keeps it out of the way and stops it from scratching your interior. And then so now you'll be able to flip this over, especially if you've gotten the boot out already. And you'll undo these 3 clips. Each one has a tab that you push down with your fingernail, and you can pull it out. This one here for the start-stop button is actually kind of small, the tab is. My fingernails don't actually do it, so I like to just push down with a small screwdriver, and then you can kind of pull it out. This one's pretty easy. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Set that aside. Next we're going to want to get the ashtray cigarette lighter combo out of here. 8mm, 2 bolts. By the way, when we're doing this, don't try not to drop anything. Once you have these boots and everything off, it's going to end up down on top of some heat shields and kind of be a pain to get back. So. Alright, so there's two bolts, and this slides forward and out. This wire is actually long enough. I usually just hang this over the edge. If at any point you're worried about scratching your trim, you can put a towel or tape over it or something like that just to keep it safe. Now we want to get this boot off. Don't just pull the boot up, because it's actually a 2-part boot and it's a pain to get back together. So what you want to do is take it all off at once, and you'll see there's some clips down here, and basically there's the little tabs that go around a barb, and so you need to pull the tabs out and then up. So you can go kind of cross car with your screwdriver here and push on the inside of one of these tabs and then kind of pry it up and around, and you'll see it'll come off. I'll show you in a sec. Up and around. So get the 2 off, and then you can lift this up, slide the whole thing back, and then you can pull it off. So here's my tabs. You can see they have little holes in them that attaches to the barbs down on the shifter mounting plate. By the way, this is actually my aftermarket shifter mounting plate in here. It's pretty cool. It makes your shifts really, really solid. Keeps your whole shifter base in. I mean, you can't move this thing at all. From the factory, it has some sloppy bushings in here on plastic rails, and then the whole plate flexes too. So not only does this just firm up your shifter immensely, it actually stops you from over rotating the shifter and getting stuck in the 1-2 track. So you can shift back and forth. You basically never miss second gear again. So highly recommend doing this. Also doing it with this, because it's all basically the same process. I'm surprised I'm even making a second video for this. So, alright, so we need to get the shifter mounting plate freed up, because we need to get to the bottom of the shifter, and it's a real pain to do it with that in the way. In fact, it's almost impossible because your hands don't fit down there. So you can actually do this from the bottom as well. I recommend doing it from the top, because we're going to go through how to set your shift linkage. You technically don't have to disconnect the shift linkage to do this. At least you don't have to set it anywhere that you didn't have it at the beginning. But I always recommend to review your shift linkage, because it's usually not in the right spot. It's not in the best spot that it could be. And if you're having any notchy shifts or anything like that, it could be because your shift linkage is off. In fact, it almost always is. So there's, to get this plate down, we've got 4 10mm nuts we have to undo here. If you're going to use power tools in this, I didn't tell you to. So. Again, don't drop these nuts, because these are definitely going to fall in the hole now. As I'm about to drop this one. Okay. Then we're going to need to drop this down. I'm going to have to push on it. Actually, the factory mounting plate comes out a little bit easier than my aftermarket one. It's a little more flexible. Just kind of got to work it down at the same kind of height. Come on. Hung up on one of the threads here. Unless I'm still attached to something, but I don't think I am. There it is. Okay, so probably the correct force apparently. Alright, so we need to get the shifter mounting plate off and out. So if you have my shifter mounting plate, you will be able to just simply slide it rearwards, and then you'll be able to kind of turn it. You have to push down on the shifter a little bit to get it out of the way and pull it out. If you have the original one, I don't think there's quite as much clearance, so you may have to loosen this bolt up, which is going to allow you to kind of slide the shifter rearwards more. It's going to give you a little bit more clearance to get that out. If you do that, please mark the bolt so you get back in the right spot. We are going to go through how to adjust the linkage at the end, so not critical that you mark it. If you go right about center when you go back in, it'll be fine. You'll have plenty of adjustment range, especially once you have a short throw shifter, because it gives you more movement on the bottom. Okay, so now we are disconnected from the plate, and we're just dealing with the shifter. We remove that bolt, and I think at this point we have enough play that I would feel comfortable taking this without having to fully remove this out of the car. I feel comfortable unhooking this bolt and nut here, and then installing the plate, because this gives you a lot more vertical space. And sorry if I back up a couple times here. This is actually my dry run here doing this. Just got the clamps in the mail. Super excited to get this installed. I'd sold the prototype before, 3D printed one, and it had the desired effect, so this one should be really nice and a lot better. I actually broke the 3D printed one because it's a real thin wall. Alright, so we're going to remove the bolt that holds the clamp to the bottom of the shift lever. It's two 10 millimeters. You can use a socket and a wrench if you want, or I've got two wrenches, however you want to do it. Basically, gotta feel this out. This is where it's a little bit of a pain, but it's less of a pain than having to get the shift. This is called a shift lever fork, is technically the name for the clamp down there that we're unbolting right now. But to get that off of the shift linkage is a real pain too. So, okay, so I've undone this bolt. Oh, there is a sleeve in there. Don't lose it. I just lost it down into the seat bight here. That was unfortunate. Might have to cut back. Losing it into Never Never Land. See you in a minute. Alright, now that that crisis is averted, I have my sleeve back. We're going to put the short shift clamp on now. And what you're going to do, there's actually a front and a back to this thing, and I super apologize for not labeling it, or it's rather a left and a right. But you're going to see when you slide this onto the end, one way, the hole's not going to line up, so you'll be able to put the bolt through. The other way, it will line up very nicely. So, slide that on there. I'm going to take this OEM bolt through there. And the reason we're using the OEM one, not the one that is supplied, was because it's a nylock. I believe it's nylock from the factory, and those nuts wear out over time. So we're going to use a brand new nylock nut on the part that actually has to move around, so that that actually holds and doesn't loosen up over time. All right, so screw that on. Again, your pair of 10 millimeters. You can clamp this one pretty darn tight. You just really don't want it to ever loosen up, so. Show me how to use wrenches. Okay, so now we have basically an extended length rod, and you'll see that here you're not restricting the motion at all. Go down into reverse. All right. Now our job is to hook this back up to the OEM shift linkage, this guy. So we're basically reversing the steps here, so we're going to slide this down in. It is important, make sure that you have this going the right way. Now that you've unhooked this, if you were to flip this around, this could just spin freely. Your reverse track, so your little lockout here for reverse, reverse lockout will not match up with the actual reverse track, so make sure you're going the right way. So flip it like this, you should be able to push down and get this up into reverse. Right? Pick this guy up. It's actually not bad, and you got the extra length down here. You're not fighting the actual shifter base here so much with your hands. Unintended improvement for hooking up the shift linkage. If I could now just start the nut. Oh boy, don't drop the nut. It'd be really suck to get back, and I didn't send you to. Alright, we're in there. Now this one, we're going to not tighten all the way. We're going to tighten most of the way, and we're just going to leave it slightly loose at the end. Just depends on how much resistance you want in it. You can go, you can go like to where you're, a few pounds of torque in there, and there's kind of like, say it feels like a little, firm. Say the motion feels firm, but or you can leave it kind of totally loose. You basically don't want slop in it, but you also need it to be able to rotate. Man, this is a real pain. I got a long way to go to turn this nut. again, another reason why maybe, depending if your comfort level with, if you've gotten the shifter completely off the linkage before, or pulled the, this little shift lever fork thing that we're reattaching to. If you've pulled that off the linkage before and it's easy enough, by all means do this outside the car. You just have to fight with hooking it back up. So it really just depends on how big your hands are. I think I'm about at the limit for hand size here. Getting there. By the way, this install is completely in real time. I did take a break to stop and find my missing piece. I dropped in the seat, but other than that, we're going. Full speed here. Alright, it's starting to get tight. Let's see. Okay, so I have gone and made it very tight. So I'm going to back off. I can't even move it. Starting to get a little bit looser. Alright, that feels pretty good. It's got a little bit of, for the most part, free to move. Might just back up a little bit off of it. This is why you need that brand new nylock nut, because you really don't want this to loosen up over time, because you'll develop play and you could have a rattle. Nobody likes those. Okay, so now just a slight bit of resistance to motion. This nylock nut will hold it just like that forever. Alright, so we're gonna hook up the linkage down here, this top one, and we're actually not going to put a bolt in it or anything yet. We're just going to leave it slide freely here. But be careful as you do the next step not to let it fall out. So just be mindful of the position of it. There's going to be kind of a lot of screwing around here to get everything all lined up, but yeah. Alright, so we're going to drop our shifter mounting plate in. You want to drop it with the back going in first, kind of going in like this. And first thing we got to do is basically get it past the shifter here and get these bolts to clear the body so that everything is down on the bottom side. So a little bit of wiggling, and now we can kind of start to rotate it around, and this is where you may need to move the shifter forwards and backwards. Just don't let it drop out. So you can kind of just keep wiggling it around, make some clearance. It's going to be a pain. Sorry, it's just the way it is. If you want to avoid this, you can do this from the bottom, but then you don't get to reset the linkage. So, alright, so now that it's in, and we're still hooked up on the front, on the top linkage, now we can slide our sliders onto the rails, and then we're going to pull this up and get the bolts back into the holes. Now everything should still be attached. You should have two linkages attached loosely, and these four nuts, studs coming up here. So we're going to put some nuts on there really quick just to hold that in place, because then the pressure's kind of off on us. I'm just going to go ahead and finish them off here. Tighten them up. Don't ever torque these, we'll break them. Don't need much. Alright, now we can put our bolt back in on the upper linkage. This upper linkage is the one that basically just holds the shifter in a certain place relative to the transmission. This one's totally fixed, so you're just attaching to it. So I usually set it right in the middle Just works on this car, probably works on every other car too, but I have seen people set it all the way forwards or all the way backwards. It kind of just depends where you want your shifter. I mean, you can see as I move it forwards and backwards, this naturally wants to kind of slide. So if you want your shifter farther up front, you can kind of push it forward first. If you want it towards the back, you do it that way. Just be mindful, if you do go all the way up to the front or to the rear, you may have a little bit of trouble adjusting it. It's just better to be in the middle, in my opinion. So you can tighten this one up at this point. Right in the middle. Fairly tight on this. Sometimes there is a washer here, this metal piece, and it tends to fall out on people, or if you're replacing your whole shifter base, it won't come with it. You'll have to switch over from the other one. Just keep that in mind. If it's not there, it should be. You should see some metal here. Alright, and now we need to actually set our linkage. So right now it's loose because I'm sliding on the moving linkage. I actually don't know what gear I'm in. Hopefully neutral, but maybe not. Doesn't matter, we'll figure it out. So basically just bring the shifter straight down towards you until you can actually see the bolt down there and get access to it, and then just tighten it up. And we're just going to see where we are. A lot of times when you're playing around with this stuff, you shift into a gear. Alright, so I cannot move it forward, so that means I'm already in first, third, or fifth, right? I can move back, and now I've got neutral here, and then I can't go any farther back than that. So what we need to do is we need to work our way towards where we're supposed to be. And since I can't reach down there and adjust the pull on the shift linkage to shift the gears, I'm going to have to just do this kind of a step at a time. So I know I'm in third here, it looks like. Maybe first, who knows. Can't go to the left either, so we're real far off. So what I'm going to do is pull it back as far as I can, which in this case is to neutral. And now I'm going to go in and loosen it up again. And remember, I need to get farther back with my shifter, right? I can't go far enough back to do the shifts. So in order to do that, in order to get the shifter to go farther back, I need to move it forward so that I get more travel going back. So I'm going to move it forward here. I'm just going to move a little bit to the right as well because I couldn't go left. So in order to get more movement to the left, I need to hook it up when it's farther to the right. So now I'm going to tighten this up. At this point, this bolt is very accessible, which is a good sign. Typically, it is pretty accessible when you're set right. If it's underneath the shifter or something like that, it's probably not right. All right, so now still in neutral. I can go forward to third. I can get back now. Now you'll probably notice at this point that your throw is a lot shorter than it used to be because you did a short throw shifter. All right, and now I'm going to look at, so if I can get forward to third and back to fifth, and I can check my reverse out too. Do note that with this, when you're going in reverse, since your bottom of yours is longer, you may be rubbing on the heat shield down here. It's not a big deal, there's lots of clearance below it. If it bothers you right now, you can push the heat shield down, they're very malleable. Once you have everything built back up, you're never going to notice it. But so I can get into all the gears right now actually, which is pretty impressive. But I'm noticing here that I've got kind of a lot of travel to the left and not a lot of travel to the right. And if you watch my shifter mounting plate video, what that's going to do is basically allow you to be riding along the edge of your shifter base, and you're actually going to be, when you're going between first and second, you're going to be a lot closer to the reverse track in the transmission than you truly have to be. So I prefer to set these things a little bit so that there's more travel going to the right than there is to the left. And that just keeps you farther away from reverse and reduces your chances of ever getting in there. If you accidentally push down the shifter as you were going along, there's just a lot of reasons to not be over there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go down to fourth gear because it makes my bolt a lot more accessible here. And I'm going to hold on really tight to this thing. And I am going to loosen it up. And as soon as it starts being free, I'm going to move a little bit to the left. And that's going to take away some of that left travel and give me more to the right, which is ideal for me. Alright, so now, you can see now there's not very much there, and there's a lot more there. So let's see if this actually works. So first and second. a little bit funny. It seems like I'm a little bit too far. So I'm basically not getting the space that I need going to the left in order to make it into first. So I'm kind of hanging out between first and third, and I can actually even see that. So when I'm over here on the left and I go to first, see it's moving up and away. So there's something wrong there. So I think I went a little far. So now I have more room going to the right than I do to the left. So in order to get more space over here, I need to hook up the linkage when I'm further this way, right? It's gonna give me more travel back the way I came. So I'm gonna go back to fourth because it makes the linkage really accessible. All right, now I'm loose. I'm gonna move this thing over to the right a little bit. Hopefully this is kind of right where we want to end up. All right. That was pretty good. It's a little bit less this way than it is this way, so this should shift really nice for us. I really like playing with the 1-2 shift. Make sure you know what's going to happen. Do know that when you're actually doing it on the linkage or on this rod here, you actually apply a different force than if you had the ball on it. So it's not a bad idea to just throw this back on here and go through it yourself with the exact forces that you would have. Reverse there. So that first second feels really good, third, fourth feels good, fifth, sixth. And if you look at the amount of travel up versus down, they should be about the same. If you're not fully engaging into the gear going one way or another, you'll need to adjust the fore-aft throw. So I'm gonna pull this off. So just as a recap, when you're setting this, and if you watch my shifter mounting plate video, I went through a lot more iterations with it. I didn't get so lucky, so there's a little bit more to learn there. But basically, if I need the shifter to go farther to the left, hook up the linkage when it's farther to the right. If I need shifter to go farther to the right, then hook up the linkage when it's farther to the left. And then same with fore-aft. So if I need more forwards movement, if I'm running into the gear before I'm done here, I need to dart the shifter a little bit farther back. And then if I need more back because I'm having trouble getting into fourth or second or sixth, you need to start the shifter a little bit farther up front. And if you know that, you can't go wrong. Doesn't matter what any tape measurements are up to here or any of that crap. You just need to know, where are you now? What's your limiting factors? If your limiting factor is the walls of the housing down here, you just need to move away from them, right? So I'm just going to double check that all this is tight. All right, and now we're putting things back together, which is great. All right, so if you disassembled this by pulling this boot off of here, I'm sorry, you're on your own, but there's a little sleeve in here that holds the two pieces together. So hopefully you just didn't do that. This is real easy. You're just going to push down here, slide the front end under these tabs, then you're going to push down on both sides back here. Just push straight down. You should hear 2 clicks. Pull this little guy down. Alright. And we're going to save the shift boot for the very end. We don't need to do anything with it yet. So our next thing is going to be to put the cigarette lighter back in. Slide this in there. It'll just barely clear under this other piece. Put your 2 8mm bolts. Battery cut out on me there. Alright, so if you don't hook these up, you'll know about it because you'll have all sorts of error messages. You won't be able to start the car or put the parking brake on. So hook those up and pull this back out. Slide this guy in there. Push straight down. Should lock in nicely. Oop, don't start the car. And then you can push this right back in. And now we just have to put the shift knob back on. So basically there's a friction surface here on the lever, which you can see, and this has to go around it, and then it has to get clamped down. So you're going to take the hose clamp that I gave you, kind of just get this tightened up to start. If I could operate a hose clamp correctly. Go. Just get it to where it's just starting to get tight. I got a little off crooked for some reason. Strange. Alright, and then make sure it's going the right way. It won't let you put it on any other way. Then just push down. You should feel it's kind of set into that, and then you can come in with your screwdriver, tighten the hose clamp the rest of the way, and that'll lock it into place. Should be able to pull up. And then, assuming you have it forwards, you can just set this right down. Put that in, and you're good.